Well, good afternoon, and welcome to the conference for the National Alliance to End Homelessness. So thrilled to have you all here in lovely, sweltering Washington, D.C. Great place to be. You'd rather not wilt anywhere else, I would guess. So coming up to the conference, I got to thinking about which is to everything there is a season and a time and a purpose under heaven. For the last 35 years, Nan has had that purpose. As a program assistant, 1988 when she became director of policy, 1991 when she became VP of policy, or 1999 when she became president and CEO. Always looking for the absolute best to be able to end homelessness, responsible for increasing federal spending on homelessness by $2 billion. Responsible for ending veteran homelessness by a half. Championing and making things happen like permanent supportive housing, rapid rehousing, and the systematic collection of data, making it all real. For all those things, Nan, I'm going to come to my second verse, which is 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 7. I have fought a good fight. I have finished my course. I have kept the faith. Nan, for 35 years, you kept the faith on homelessness and ending it. And for that, I ask that you all give her a standing ovation. And now it's time to pass the baton to a new leader. And no other person is more appropriate to pass the baton, to finish the race in this way, than Nan Roman, who I'm welcoming to the stage right now.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you so much to Jeff. I have the honor today to be introducing Oliva, the new CEO of the National Alliance to End Homelessness. But first, let me take a brief minute, if you will. The Alliance was founded in 1983 by a small but diverse group of well-connected people sitting around a kitchen table. They were determined to do something about a problem, people sleeping on the streets, that had just emerged and that they assumed would be short-lived. Would that they had been right. The Alliance has changed and grown over the years, but the principles of these founders, Susan Baker, who's joining us by phone, who wanted to be here with us, but unfortunately contracted COVID, and the other wonderful people who started the Alliance. These founders and the principles they have left with us have stood the organization in good stead. Those principles are that we should primarily work on the things that we could get done to fix and that would help people immediately, but also lend our voices to the bigger justice issues. And that we should stay small and nimble so that we could respond as things changed. I came to the Alliance a bit later. I wasn't there at the beginning, but these organizational principles have stood us in good stead. They resulted in us listening to and learning from you in the field and elevating those things, Jeff mentioned several of them, that worked for you, elevating those to the national level. Things like collecting and using administrative data, HMIS, creating plans and systems to end homelessness, not just to manage homelessness, taking on chronic homelessness, permanent supportive housing and rapid rehousing, diversion, eliminating disparities, and more. So I want to thank the founders of the Alliance and indeed all of the Alliance board members for what they have done and continue to do to lead and support the organization. They have made us what we are today. I also want to thank the very best group of people anybody could ever hope to work with, and that is the Alliance staff, past and present. It's a small but mighty team, and they are so brilliant, so determined, so creative, and they have accomplished amazing things. And yes, to the Alliance staff. And of course, I want to thank all of you for what you do and for what you have done. Thanks to the case managers, the program officers, CEOs, all the staff and volunteers, for leading organizations, for providing services, sharing your lived experiences. Thanks to the hundreds and hundreds of organizations that have done your best to end homelessness, always creating new approaches and finding new solutions despite the endless challenges. Thank you. It's been an honor to work with you. And now I have another honor, and that is to introduce the National Alliance to End Homelessness' new Chief Executive Officer, Ann Oliva. I can see that for many, if not most of you, Ann will need no introduction. You already know that her mission in life is to end homelessness. For her, homelessness is not an issue, it's the issue. It's what she is driven to do with her life and her career. Ann is a first-generation American, the daughter of Cuban immigrants who came to the U.S. in 1962. As far as I know, this makes her the first Latina leader of a national homelessness organization. Ann started her work on homelessness as a VISTA volunteer in New Mexico, after which she spent 9 years at the Community Partnership, the organization that's the COC for the District of Columbia. So Ann's knowledge and experience of homelessness began with a decade of working with people and systems on the ground. Many of you know Ann from her years running the homeless programs at HUD, first as director of the Office of Special Needs Assistance Programs, and later as the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Special Needs. In those roles, she succeeded in streamlining the HUD homeless programs that you are all very familiar with, and building upon them, especially with respect to Housing First, ending veteran homelessness, and youth homelessness. She also developed strong relationships on the Hill, relationships that have stood her in good stead over the years and that I know she will expand upon here at the Alliance. Ann left HUD during the Trump administration, did federal policy work and consulting, and last year she became the Vice President for Housing at the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, a well-regarded national policy think tank here in DC. But as I said, homelessness is Ann's issue, and I hope it's not presumptuous for me to say that I think she has finally found her true home here at the National Alliance to End Homelessness. I should tell you that I first met Ann way back when she was at the Community Partnership, and that I've worked with her in her various roles continuously since then, as have others of us at the Alliance. Through those years, I have admired her strategic and impactful work, have joined with her repeatedly in pursuit of improved strategies and shared goals, have appreciated her support of the Alliance, and been fortunate to return that support of her innovative efforts. There were many spectacular candidates for the position of CEO at the Alliance, which I can say from experience is one of the best jobs anyone could ever have. In my view, the board chose exactly the right person to take the position. This is the job for Anne. This is her life's work, and the Alliance is the organization she needs to get the job done. I expect great things. It is my honor to introduce the CEO of the National Alliance to End Homelessness, Anne Oliva.
Thank you, everybody. It's so lovely to see you all, and this feels, as one would imagine, a little surreal being up here today. Not just because I've gotten used to seeing so many of your faces in little Zoom boxes on my computer screen, but because it's the first time in my own professional memory that someone other than Nan is giving the opening remarks at the Alliance's summer conference. So before I get started on what we hope to learn and consider in our time together this week, I hope that you will indulge me for a moment to say a few words about the leadership transition here at the Alliance and about my friend Nan Roman. I want to start by thanking the Alliance Board of Directors, some of whom are here today, one of whom is on Zoom there. And what I want to say about them is that they understood the assignment when Nan announced that she would be leaving the Alliance. I can tell you from personal experience that they undertook a thoughtful and thorough process. I got asked a lot, Jeff, a lot of tough questions, and hopefully I asked a few tough questions of my own. But what I want to note here is the care they took with this responsibility and how well they represented the needs of the organization and the field in the search process. I am grateful. I know a lot of people don't actually say this after they go through a search process, but I am actually grateful for having gone through it. And I just wanted to publicly thank the board of directors for selecting me as CEO. Thanks, Jeff. And thank you, Nan, for your kind and gracious introduction. It is just an incredible honor to be succeeding you in this position after so many years of us working together. So at the risk of making her mad, which I might be right now, I want to share a couple of thoughts. And for those of you who know me, I'm going to try and do this without crying, but I'm not sure how that's going to go. So it's not my strong suit. Here we go. First and foremost, on behalf of the team at the Alliance, I want to say thank you for your years of service, your leadership in the face of tough challenges, and your steadfast and unwavering commitment to ending homelessness. We are better at what we do because of your leadership, and we are grateful for you and your time as the Alliance's CEO. Now you can clap. I also want to say that I am personally better at what I do because of your leadership, your friendship, and your support. As she mentioned, we've worked together a lot over many years. But the image that comes to mind first when I think about my relationship with Nan is one late night in New Orleans after the devastation of Hurricane Katrina. I think I was still working on HUD's disaster recovery team, and frankly, you were the person in our field who I looked up to maybe more than anyone. And that night, you and I and a few others, some of whom might be in this room today, loaded into one of the Unity of Greater New Orleans outreach vans and went into some of the most visceral, heartbreaking, and difficult situations I have still ever seen, and I've seen a lot, with some of the most amazing outreach workers that I've ever worked with. For those of you who don't know, abandoned building outreach is a special kind of outreach, and it is incredibly difficult. Given your position, you didn't have to do that. And what I walked away from that night was that you wanted to really understand what was happening in New Orleans so you could use your power and the influence of the Alliance to help in the ways that made the most sense. I doubt she told folks that she did that, and maybe she doesn't even remember doing it. But to me, it was a big deal. I went on to ride with that outreach team many, many times, including during my tenure at HUD, because I wanted, like Nan did, to see firsthand what was happening on the ground so that I could make better decisions in the way that Nan modeled. And because of the advocacy that you promoted, along with others, but that the Alliance promoted and that Nan promoted, we went on to get the largest single Continuum of Care grant in the history of the program to provide rental assistance to people experiencing homelessness in the state of Louisiana after Hurricane Katrina. And I got to be the one to implement it when I got to HUD. I am sure many others in this room and folks watching online and across our field have similar stories about how you influence them to do this work with integrity and with perseverance. I wanted to share one of my stories today to illustrate your immeasurable impact on our field and to help me say thank you for all you've done and accomplished towards our shared goal of ending homelessness. All right, thank you for indulging me there. Now we're going to get to know each other a little bit. So we're going to have an exercise here. If you feel comfortable, raise your hand in response to the questions that I'm going to ask. If it applies to you, you may fit into more than one category. And I encourage you to look around as we're doing this exercise because you may see someone that you want to connect with during this conference based on how they respond. All right, here we go. Who was at an in-person Alliance conference for the very first time? Right? That's like... Who started in this work during the pandemic? How many of you are frontline staff? How many folks have lived experience of homelessness or housing instability or the systems that are related to homelessness, like public housing or vouchers or child welfare or behavioral health systems? How many of y'all are COC or other systems leadership? How about staff from other national organizations? Can I see the hands of the federal team and local government? And how about housing folks, public housing authorities, anybody that has to do with housing? These are folks you want to talk to. And here's my last question. For those of you who are here for the first time, I would take a good look around on this one because these are the folks who are going to be a really good resource for you. How many of you have been doing this work for at least 10 years? Our own team at the Alliance has changed since you last saw us in person. Can I have the Alliance team staff stand, please? So these are the folks, you should not ask me for help. I didn't have anything to do with this conference, but these are the folks who you should ask for help. But the reason I asked them to stand, and some of them are still in registration, was give them a huge thanks. They managed this conference alongside all new COVID protocols to help keep us safe, and also in the middle of an organizational leadership transition. And thanks to the Alliance team for all your work. All right, well, I'm going to end the getting to know, and we have to be in community together so that we can have hard discussions when we need to, and we can make sound decisions together. This is part of my commitment to building trust and collaborative relationships. Because when we're not in community, that means we're doing this work in isolation. And I think that we've seen that doesn't actually work. I have known or worked with many of you in this room for a long time, but I'll share something that I don't talk about a whole lot. As Nan mentioned, I'm a first-generation American. I'm the daughter of Cuban immigrants who came from Havana to this country with a toddler and another child on the way. They were really hard workers, still are, who loved their country, but they wanted to make sure that they had a good life for their kids in what was an increasingly dangerous political environment, especially for my dad. And like many, many other immigrants, they left their country with almost nothing. One suitcase, in fact, with family pictures hidden in the lining. But they received help when they got here, and I think the fact of that help has shaped my family in big and small ways. And so has living with the trauma of their decision to leave their country and start over. It's not a coincidence that my siblings and I are all in the category of do-gooder in some way, shape, or form. And I'm saying all of this to let you know that ending homelessness is both personal and professional for me. I'm here to use the platform that being the CEO at the Alliance gives me to continue doing this work. I want to amplify the best of what we've done so well as an organization. And I want to also look for new ways to approach our shared work to end homelessness. Because the work of ending homelessness is really hard. Doing this work during an evolving pandemic has left so many of us experiencing a new kind of tired. Not the jet lag to DC kind of tired, like bone tired. And you're tired because rents are skyrocketing, making the resources we have harder and harder to use. You're tired because you're experiencing a workforce crisis that means you don't have enough staff, and the staff you do have are experiencing burnout. You're tired of battling the increasing criminalization of people experiencing homelessness and the misinformation about homelessness in your communities. And some of you are tired because of your own personal experience with housing instability or homelessness, or because of your own experiences of trauma. At the Alliance, we're struggling with some of these same issues. And I want you to know that we hear you. We hear what you're telling us. And hopefully you can look around this room and over the next 3 days and know that you're not alone in this struggle. Our shared work can't be about going back to what we had before the pandemic. The pandemic brought into clearer focus that what we had wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough because we didn't have enough resources to do our jobs, and because we weren't fully engaged on racial justice. We weren't having hard conversations about equity and how the pursuit of housing justice should be our North Star. We allowed disagreements on policy or definitions to split the field rather than finding the common ground that unites us. But we have an opportunity to set a different course. You're going to hear from my colleague Amanda Indiri on Wednesday about Funders Together and the course that they've just recently set. We can choose to have unity as federal partners, national organizations, stakeholders, service providers, and as people with lived experience of homelessness, even if we don't align on every single policy or program design choice. We can pursue housing justice and a future where every individual, youth, and family can access safe and affordable housing and have the supports they need to maintain their housing if something goes wrong. That is how we will end homelessness once and for all. Because, and you all know this better than I do, it's been a long time since I've been in direct service. Having to decide who gets help and who doesn't is awful. It's terrible for the person or family asking for help, and it is gut-wrenching for the staff who have to do it. But I firmly believe that it does not have to be like this. I wouldn't have taken this job if I didn't believe it. And I think we have an obligation to not just work together, but also show up in community and listen. And so to that end, my team is planning a series of site visits and listening sessions beginning in September, so we can hear directly from people with lived experience, frontline staff, and system leaders to inform the short, medium, and long-term strategies that the Alliance should be pursuing. When possible, we'll coordinate our presence in community with state and local conference planners and other leaders like the team at the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness so we can learn together. And as I talk about coming into community, it's important that I be really clear on one thing. If you ask me or another staff member to speak at your state or local conference, we will ask you about the extent to which people with lived expertise have space on your agenda. And if your answer is they don't, the Alliance will not be coming to speak at your event. So the pursuit of housing justice is going to be a long game. We have to work towards that while also making progress in the short and medium term. And to do that, we need to understand what the available data tells us. Despite making progress on reducing homelessness across all populations between 2010 and 2016, homelessness, especially unsheltered homelessness, has steadily risen, making this an even more urgent crisis. In 2020, HUD reported that for the first time since they began collecting point-in-time count data, there was an increase in the number of people in families with kids living unsheltered. Let me say that again. There was an increase in the number of people in families with kids living unsheltered. For the first time, we saw the number of individuals living on the streets exceed the number of individuals living in shelters. And this should be shocking, but it's likely not for many of us. What it is, however, is absolutely unacceptable. The data also tells us that people of color and historically marginalized people are disproportionately impacted by homelessness. Families experiencing homelessness are typically headed by women. Many are headed by young parents, and they include a high percentage of young children under the age of 6. Youth, veterans, and adults experiencing chronic homelessness are suffering on our streets and in our shelters every single day. And more than half of sheltered people and 40% of unsheltered housing. Because we didn't have real-time national data, the Alliance surveyed COCs over the course of the pandemic and found that most continuums believe that unsheltered homelessness has increased in their community. How many of you think that unsheltered homelessness has increased in your community? Yeah. Based on what we know, we strongly suspect that unsheltered and chronic homelessness will show an increase when HUD releases the 2022 point-in-time count data. For families, the story seems to be a bit different. Our information from the field indicates that the number of families becoming homeless during the pandemic may have decreased, at least in some big communities. And this is likely the result of pandemic relief measures that helped keep families afloat, like the child tax credit, unemployment insurance, the emergency rental assistance program, and the eviction moratorium. As far as we can tell, those programs, including cash programs, helped keep families in their housing. But we know that there is a great risk as these programs come to an end. Ending homelessness through the pursuit of housing justice requires us to implement system-level solutions, and we must move with both urgency and intentionality. System-level improvements that we can focus on in the coming months and years fall into a few distinct buckets. We need to learn from newer investments and add to our body of knowledge about what works. I just mentioned cash. Folks haven't tested that before in that way, so we need to think about that. The Alliance and our partners at the National Low-Income Housing Coalition and the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities and others fought hard for those pandemic relief programs. And we have to evaluate with a critical eye how they worked and who they worked for, and make changes based on that new knowledge. If they don't have the impact that we expected, we need to know why. We're also going to need to review in real time what communities who receive funding under HUD's new unsheltered and rural notice of funding opportunity are doing, and spread the word about strategies that are working. That was the first bucket. We need to lead with racial justice and equity for marginalized people. We know that Black, Indigenous, and people of color are overrepresented in the population of people experiencing homelessness. People with disabilities and LGBTQ people are more likely to experience homelessness. People experiencing homelessness are getting older, which comes with additional health care needs. We must examine the ways in which our own systems and organizations add to or perpetuate the disparities faced by marginalized people in spite of good intentions. And to say it another way, we have to prioritize creating a system and programs that work for everyone so no one is left behind. We need to establish a strong foundation of coordination and collaboration. This means working with non-traditional partners and establishing new ways of reaching people. But most importantly, it means partnering with people who have lived experience of the systems that we want to change. And it starts with asking people what they want and need. But it continues with ensuring you're hiring people, including in management positions, with lived experience and sharing power through good governance. Tomorrow's plenary will include a conversation with Mark Dones and Marvin Futrell from King County, where we're specifically going to talk about this issue. You're going to learn a lot. It's fantastic. Next bucket. We need to bring housing first to scale. That entails strengthening partnerships with housing partners, including landlords, city housing departments, public housing authorities, and working together to preserve the affordable housing that we have, increase the supply of affordable housing, and increase affordability by expanding rental assistance programs. We need to fight for investments in affordable housing supply and move towards a world where we have a housing voucher for every household that is eligible for one. And we have to do this at both the local level and the national level. At the same time, we should expand access to the services people want and need, especially through partnerships with mainstream systems that can provide those services, like health and behavioral health care and employment services. The Alliance is working on these important connections, and I believe that some of our national partners working in this space, like National Healthcare for the Homeless Council and CSH, are here this week as well. We're all working together on those important issues. We are also going to have to change the public narrative. Yay. We can't only react to the attacks happening in state houses, city council, and on social media about people experiencing homelessness and the providers who serve them. We all need to engage in more proactive communication, taking a page from organizations like the Housing Narrative Lab and Invisible People, so that we can recapture the narrative around homelessness and get the good that is done every day by the people in this room and your colleagues out into the world with the same vehemence as our detractors. We need a crisis response system that includes housing-focused, low-barrier shelter, and learn from the non-congregate shelter that we implemented as part of our COVID response. Crisis response also has to include outreach, where we equip outreach workers with real resources and not just bottles of water in summer and blankets in the winter. And finally, last bucket, we know that homeless systems can't end homelessness alone. We have to find better ways to engage other sectors in order to bolster the safety net so that fewer people experience the trauma of homelessness to begin with. Tomorrow, we'll hear from Jeff Oliva, the Executive Director of the U.S. Interagency Council, about the need to go upstream and to prevent homelessness and reduce inflow. So I know I said you were tired, and then I gave you a whole bucket of work, like a whole bucket, set of buckets of work. So I know that was a lot. It was a lot. But those system-level pieces will build the foundation for making progress on our priorities. Right now, the Alliance is laser-focused on unsheltered homelessness and older adults. But I want to be clear, it doesn't mean that we aren't also working hard to end homelessness for families, veterans, and young people. We absolutely are. But so are our partners. We'll be supporting efforts like the VA's goal of housing 38,000 veterans. We're also eager to see the release or to find the ways that we need to support the federal government efforts on ending homelessness. And I promise you, we will not lose sight of any of those pieces. Alongside those strong system-level efforts, we must continue to push for effective policy and legislation at the federal, state, and local levels in order to scale in the way that's needed. Our VP for Policy, Steve Berg, will talk more about this on Wednesday, but one way that we can all make our voices heard is in Washington is Capitol Hill Day. That's scheduled this year for Wednesday, September 14th. Go ahead, clap for it. I'm down for it. You all hopefully received an email from me to register for this event sometime this morning, and our goal this year is 1,000 participants and at least 250 legislative meetings, and we need your help to make that happen. Like I said, Steve will talk about that again on Wednesday. The Alliance has also refreshed our materials to help you register people experiencing homelessness to vote. The elections this year are incredibly important, even though it's not a presidential election year. And they will definitely impact our ability to obtain new funding and create sound federal policy. So I want to close by thanking the Alliance staff and the board for being so welcoming to me and for working so hard to get us here today. And I want to thank Nan again for being so gracious as you hand me the baton. And for all of you out there, I want to thank you to all of you who have offered me kind words and support. I go, girl, and like giving me quotes from all different inspirational things. So thank you so much for that support as we made this leadership transition. And then I will offer this closing thought, which actually I'm stealing a little bit from you, Steve. This movement to end homelessness has persevered and survived through tough challenges in addition to the periods of light. We're changing and growing, but we're still here doing good work and always trying to be better. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter at what point you raised your hand at the questions that I asked at the top of this plenary. We are the same community. I hope you feel that over the next 3 days and that you practice that when you head home. It's true that we have a lot of work to do, but we also know a lot about what we need to do. And if we've learned anything over the past 2 years, it is hopefully that we are more powerful when we work in unity and towards justice. Thanks. Thank you. Y'all made it easy for me today. I appreciate it. We have a great set of sessions and plenaries for you over the next 3 days. I hope you enjoy them. I hope you enjoy our time together. And now I'm going to turn it over to Shalom Mulkey, who is our president and chief operating officer and really was in charge of getting all of this done for all of us, who will come and give us some important information as we head to our sessions. Shalom.
How about that another round of applause for our amazing new CEO? I think I speak on behalf of the whole Alliance staff, and I think many, and probably all of you here, that we are just incredibly grateful and excited for Anne's leadership at the Alliance, but also in this movement. And this is my one point of privilege for being up here. I want to say thank you to Nan. For 14 years of just, now I'm crying, thanks Anne, of incredible leadership and partnership with the Alliance. So thank you, Nan. Okay, that's out of the way. I'm going to move on to just some nitty-gritty details. So before we break for workshops, I just want to cover a couple safety items first. One, masks are required. I think you've probably picked that up. So whenever you're in a conference space and you are not eating or drinking, we are asking you to wear your masks. If you are not feeling well and you feel like you are experiencing symptoms, we do have a supply of COVID tests at the registration desk. So we encourage you to go pick up a test, and then we will follow up with you about what to do if you do test positive. That's not going to happen. That's right, because we're all going to wear masks. Secondly, if you requested a vegetarian meal, you received a green card in your name badge envelope. If you threw that out because you didn't know what it was for, please go down to the registration desk to pick up a new green card. That is what you're going to be sitting on the table to indicate to the server that they should bring you a vegetarian meal. I hear a lot of you saying you threw those out. So we'll warn the registration folks. And then lastly, I just am going to encourage all of you to come to the meet and mingle tonight. That is after the final session. It's going to be back in this room. And you're actually going to have an opportunity to thank Nan in person because she'll be there. So please do join us for the meet and mingle after that last session. And with that, please go have a great conference, and we look forward to connecting with you.